Well, the first time I came across Brian was I was a young reporter in South London, and I was at a match at Charlton, and I came home and my dad was a football writer, and I said, you know, I said it was a good game, and but there was a man in the press box who conducted a conversation across 5 rows, which lasted most of the first half. And my dad said, oh, that would have been Brian Glanville. So.
And I met him in Milano when I was working for Inter at a lunch that I shared with him and my wife, and he regaled us with many interesting stories about his life, not only in Italy, but of course his work in England up to that point.
Well, Brian's been a columnist for World Soccer for many, many years. He first wrote for the magazine in the early 60s and began a column in the 70s, and he's been a continued presence ever since. And it's a very important column for us because we cover the whole world of football, so many different aspects and so many different viewpoints.
Well, this is a man who started at the age of 17. He's about to hit 85 this year, so he's been on the go for nearly 70 years with no sign of retirement, no holidays, no diminishment so far as I can see in his energy. So he is quite inspirational, but also I think quite terrifying to most ordinary mortals.
I can remember being on a plane bringing the England team back home from, I think, Rome, and we were, the whole FA party, sitting on this plane waiting for Brian to arrive. He made this entry down the central aisle, and he was conducting an argument with the chief steward in Italian, and he had another argument with an FA man on the way down who was offended that Sunday. And he was just full of life and vigour. And as he got further down the plane, Jimmy Armfield, the old England player, was sitting there doing the Daily Telegraph crossword, which Jim did every morning. And Brian was in full flight and walking quite quickly, and Jim, speaking to himself, said, 10 letters meaning priestly. And Brian didn't even pause and walk past it, sacerdotal, and then carried on with the argument. I thought, God, he really is something, isn't he?
Brian Glanville, to me, he means the doyen of football writers, simple as that. He's someone I've admired since I first started reading newspapers. I remember reading his stuff as a teenager, reading the Sunday Times, actually getting quite angry about his take on Bobby Robson, but that's part of the joy of Brian. You know, he had firm opinions, he's never been afraid to write them. I think he's always said that, you know, the greatest quality a journalist can have is their independence, and he certainly showed it.
Brian's never been one to be swayed by the latest phase or the latest fad. His ideas and opinions are always well thought out, well researched. He's not someone who will jump onto a bandwagon.
I mean, ultimately, he was the guy who first nailed Sepp Blatter. He saw through Michel Platini. He's already got the measure of Gianni Infantino, the new FIFA president.
He was never afraid, has never been afraid to back his judgment. Yeah, he's an individual, this is Brian Glanville, and the game's been better for him.
So these awards tonight very much celebrate sports writing, and I think if there's one regret my father has, it's that in British culture, unlike American culture, I think he's always felt that there's a certain snobbery towards sports writing. In America, you can be a great sports writer, and I think that he would have loved it if British culture too had that same recognition that you could be a great literary writer, a great sports writer, without there being a distinction.
And his body of work is extraordinary, I think, for someone who's been a regular jobbing reporter as well. His literature's phenomenal. The plays that he's written, and you always get the impression that he would have been happier as a playwright, as a novelist, rather than a football writer. But he's an extraordinary body of work. Brian
was a huge influence on me, and I think there's I'm probably going to steal this line from someone, I don't know who said it, but someone said that 90% of football writers are influenced by Brian Glanville, and the other 10% should be. And I don't think there's any greater tribute than that.
So Brian, I'm sorry I can't be with you tonight. As you know, I'm preparing for the Euros, but I wish you a wonderful evening and many, many congratulations on this very, very well-deserved award. I hope you have a great time.